First Contact Protocols Doctor. Sekthara looked at the holographic display with tired eyes. Another species wanted to join the Galactic Confederation. This time it was something called humans from a small blue planet in the Outer Rim. She had been reviewing membership applications for 300 years, and they all looked the same after a while. The Altarian scientist touched her scaled forehead and sighed. Her people had discovered faster-than-light travel 2,000 years ago. They had energy shields, plasma weapons, and cities that floated in the clouds of gas giants. Now she had to review the technology reports of creatures who still used chemical rockets. "Computer, show me their military capabilities," she said in her native clicking language. The display changed to show crude drawings and basic descriptions. The humans claimed they had something called kinetic acceleration weaponry and electromagnetic propulsion systems. Sekthara laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. These mammals were trying to impress the galaxy with magnetic toys. She read their description of railguns out loud to her assistant, Mexiol. "They say they can use magnetism to throw metal objects very fast." Both aliens burst into laughter. "Next they will tell us they discovered fire," Mexiol said, his four eyes blinking with amusement. The report mentioned something about nuclear fusion attempts and chemical propellant research. Sekthara shook her head. Most species discovered energy weapons and anti-gravity before they even left their home planets. These humans were backwards even by the standards of primitive civilizations. She opened a communication channel to Admiral Vorthak of the Hegemony Navy. The massive Kraxon appeared on screen. His 6 arms crossed over his armored chest. His people were the military backbone of the Confederation, and nothing happened in space without his approval. "Admiral, I am reviewing the human application. They claim to have military technology," Sekthara said. Vorthak's laugh sounded like rocks grinding together. "I saw their submission. They throw metal sticks with magnets. My youngest offspring has better weapons in his toy collection. Should I recommend them for membership? Why not? Tier 3 developing species status. Let them mine asteroids and trade basic materials. They are too primitive to cause any real problems." Sekthara marked the application as approved. Humans would be allowed to join the galactic community, but only at the lowest level. They could not vote on important matters, could not access advanced technology, and definitely could not serve in the military. The news of humanity's acceptance spread quickly through the galaxy. On Altair Prime, university students used human technology reports as examples of primitive thinking. On the warworld of Drakmor, young warriors were told that humans represented what happened when a species never learned to fight properly. Ambassador Chen Wei received the acceptance letter at the human embassy on Nexus Station. She was a small woman by galactic standards, barely reaching the chest of most alien species. The other ambassadors treated her with polite indifference, the way adults might treat a child playing dress-up. "Congratulations on your acceptance," said Ambassador Thylex of the Centauri Republic. The tall, thin alien looked down at Chen with what might have been a smile. "Tier 3 status is quite an achievement for such a young species." "Thank you," Chen replied calmly. "We look forward to contributing to galactic peace and prosperity." Behind her polite words, Chen felt frustrated. She had tried to explain human military capabilities, but nobody would listen. When she mentioned railguns that could accelerate projectiles to tremendous speeds, the aliens nodded like adults humoring a child's fantasy. During the welcome ceremony, she met other Tier 3 species. The vegan traders who sold exotic fruits, the Proximan artists who made beautiful sculptures, and the Tau Cetian musicians whose songs could make you cry. All of them were considered harmless by the greater galactic community. "Do not worry about the classification," said Ambassador Veltar of the Vegans. "Most species never advance beyond Tier 3. We have been members for 800 years and are quite content." Chen smiled and nodded, but inside she wondered what would happen when the galaxy discovered what human engineers had really accomplished. Earth's railgun research had not stopped with simple magnetic acceleration. Human scientists had been working on the physics of kinetic energy for generations, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Back on Earth, General Morrison read the acceptance report with mixed feelings. Humanity was now part of a galactic civilization, but they were being treated like children with toys. "What do our intelligence reports say about galactic military doctrine?" he asked his aide. "Energy shields, plasma weapons, and exotic matter technology, sir. They seem to have never developed advanced kinetic weapons. Their shields are designed to stop energy blasts and charged particles. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. And what about our latest railgun tests? Project Thunderbolt achieved 0.08C yesterday, sir. The tungsten rod vaporized 3 mountains before losing momentum. Make sure that information stays classified. Let the galaxy think we are primitive for now. Meanwhile, on the mining world of Kepler 442b, human colonists were setting up extraction operations. The planet was rich in rare metals that the galaxy needed for their technology. It was considered worthless by most species because it required hard work to mine, rather than automated systems. Captain Sarah Torres watched her teams deploy their equipment. Hidden among the mining gear were components for defensive installations. If trouble came, the human colonies would not be defenseless. Captain, we are receiving complaints from the Drakmari Commerce Guild, her communications officer reported. They claim this system belongs to their trading network. Torres frowned. The Drakmari were known throughout the galaxy as aggressive traders who used military force to back their business deals. They had never shown interest in Kepler 442b before humans arrived. Send a diplomatic response. Remind them that we filed proper colonization claims with the Galactic Registry. Yes, ma'am. Should I mention our defensive capabilities? No. Let them think we are just miners with shovels. Across the galaxy, the pieces were being set for a confrontation that nobody expected. The established powers saw humans as another weak species to be managed and controlled. They had no idea that human civilization had spent centuries perfecting the science of making things go very fast and hit very hard. Dr. Zekathara filed her final report on human technology assessment. Primitive kinetic weapons, basic electromagnetic systems, no significant military threat, she wrote. Recommend standard Tier 3 protocols and mining colony restrictions. She had no way of knowing that humans had just solved the engineering problems that had puzzled their scientists for decades. The latest generation of human railguns could accelerate projectiles to relativistic speeds, turning simple matter into weapons that could crack planets. The Galactic Confederation welcomed humanity with the casual indifference reserved for harmless children. They had made this mistake before with other species, but never with consequences that would shake the foundations of their civilization. Admiral Vorthak added human space to his patrol routes, but gave the assignment to junior officers. Nothing ever happens in human territory, he told them. Consider it a vacation. None of them realized they were about to discover that the most dangerous weapons in the universe were not exotic energy beams or impossible technologies. Sometimes the most terrifying force was something as simple as Newton's laws of motion, perfected by a species that refused to accept limitations. Escalating tensions. 3 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Confederation. Human colonies spread across dozens of worlds, mining rare metals and building settlements on planets that other species found too difficult or dangerous to colonize. The galaxy had grown comfortable with humans as quiet, hardworking members who caused no trouble. That comfort was about to end. Captain Drakmor of the Drakmari Commerce Guild stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Talon. His red scales gleamed under the harsh bridge, lighting as he studied tactical displays showing human mining operations in the Kepler sector. These mammals are taking resources that belong to us, he growled to his second-in-command. The Drakmari had built their reputation on aggressive business practices backed by superior firepower. They controlled trade routes across 3 spiral arms and had never been challenged by a Tier 3 species. Sir, the humans filed proper colonization claims, his aide said carefully. The Galactic Registry approved their settlements. Drakmor's tail lashed with anger. The registry approves anything for primitive species. They assume such creatures will be easily removed when real civilizations need those resources. The Drakmari had watched human expansion with growing irritation. Humans worked faster than expected, extracted resources more efficiently than predicted, and worst of all, they were profitable. Several Drakmari mining operations had lost contracts to human companies who offered better prices and faster delivery. Prepare the fleet, Drakmor ordered. We will remind these apes of their place in the galactic hierarchy. On Kepler 442b, Ambassador Chen Wei received the Drakmari ultimatum with careful calm. She sat in her office reading the translation, while mining operations continued outside her window. The message was simple. Humans had 7 standard days to evacuate all colonies in the Kepler sector or face military action. Ma'am, should we contact the Galactic Council? Asked her aide, Lieutenant Commander Kim Park. Chen considered the question. The Council would likely suggest mediation, which could take months. The Drakmari were not known for patience, and human intelligence suggested they were already moving warships toward the sector. Send a formal response, Chen decided. Inform them that human colonies are lawfully established and we have no intention of abandoning them. Also, remind them of our defensive capabilities. Should I be specific about our defenses? No, let them wonder. The message reached Drakmore within hours. He read it twice, then burst into laughter that echoed through his ship. Defensive capabilities! These creatures still think they can bluff us with their metal sticks and magnets. News of the dispute reached the Galactic Council on Nexus Prime. Councillor Thexani of the Altarian Federation reviewed the situation with mild interest. Trade disputes happened constantly throughout the galaxy, and they were usually resolved quickly once primitive species realized they could not stand against established powers. Should we intervene? Asked his assistant. Let the Drakmari handle it, Thexani replied. This will be over in a few days. The humans will learn their place and withdraw to more appropriate systems. Dr. Zekathera watched the developing crisis from her research station. She felt a moment of concern for the humans, who seemed nice enough despite their primitive technology. But the Drakmari military was legendary throughout the galaxy. Their plasma cannons could melt asteroids, and their energy shields had never been penetrated by conventional weapons. Perhaps we should warn the humans, she suggested to her colleague. Warn them of what? That they cannot fight the Drakmari? They will learn soon enough. On Earth, General Morrison sat in a secure briefing room deep beneath the Pentagon. Holographic displays showed Drakmari ship movements throughout the galaxy. Intelligence reports indicated a fleet of at least 40 vessels moving toward the Kepler sector. What is our military posture in the region? He asked. Colonel Sarah Torres, recently promoted from her mining world assignment, activated a tactical display. We have 15 frigates and 3 destroyers in the immediate area. The Abraham Lincoln Battle Group is 3 days away if we push their engines. Weapon status? All ships are equipped with Mark 7 railguns. The destroyers carry the new Mark 9 systems tested last month. Morrison nodded. The Mark 9 railguns could accelerate tungsten projectiles to 12% of light speed. Computer simulation suggested they could penetrate any known shielding technology, but they had never been tested against alien defenses. Rules of engagement? Standard protocols, sir. Defend human territory and citizens. Use minimum necessary force. Morrison almost smiled at that phrase. If the Drakmari knew what minimum necessary force meant to human engineers, they might reconsider their aggressive stance. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, intelligence networks buzzed with reports of human ship movements. Alien analysts noted unusual construction on human vessels, long cylindrical structures that looked like oversized mining equipment. Admiral Vorthak received these reports with casual interest. Probably mass drivers for asteroid processing, he told his staff. Primitive species often use crude magnetic systems for industrial purposes. The Drakmari fleet reached the edge of the Kepler sector and began aggressive patrols. They intercepted human cargo ships, demanding to inspect their cargoes and questioning their flight plans. The harassment was designed to pressure human colonies into abandoning their claims. Captain Torres received hourly reports from merchant vessels describing Drakmari intimidation tactics. She watched the tactical displays from her command ship, the destroyer New York, and waited for orders from Earth. Ma'am, the cargo ship Denver is requesting escort assistance, her communications officer reported. 3 Drakmari ships are demanding they heave to for inspection. Launch 2 frigates to escort the Denver to safe harbor, Torres ordered. Remind all ships to maintain peaceful posture but defend themselves if attacked. The first direct confrontation happened near the asteroid mining station at Kepler 442c. A Drakmari patrol ship fired warning shots across the bow of the human transport vessel Chicago. The transport immediately sent a distress signal. Within minutes, the human frigate Boston arrived on scene. Captain Linda Martinez opened communications with the Drakmari vessel. This is Captain Martinez of the UES Boston. You are in violation of Galactic Navigation Code 337 by threatening civilian vessels in lawfully claimed space. The Drakmari captain appeared on screen, his scales bright red with aggression. I am Captain Vextall of the Drakmari Navy. You will order your civilian ships to leave this system immediately. Negative. Human colonies are lawfully established here. We will defend our territory and our people. Vexatel looked at the human frigate with contempt. The ship was barely 200 meters long, dwarfed by his own vessel. He could see what looked like crude magnetic coils along its spine, probably some kind of mining equipment repurposed as weapons. "You cannot threaten the Drakmari Navy with industrial tools," he snarled. "Withdraw now or face the consequences." Captain Martinez remained calm. "Sir, this is your final warning. Cease harassment of civilian vessels or we will take appropriate defensive action." Vextal cut the communication and ordered his weapons charged. Plasma batteries powered up with a distinctive whine that could be heard throughout the ship. His crew prepared for what they expected to be a very short battle. They had no idea that the human frigate's industrial tools were actually precision instruments capable of accelerating matter to speeds that would make their plasma weapons look like children's toys. The confrontation was being monitored by observers from dozens of species. Most expected the humans to withdraw when faced with superior Drakmari firepower. A few hoped the primitive species would at least put up an entertaining fight before being destroyed. None of them were prepared for what was about to happen when humanity finally revealed what they had really been building in their shipyards. The warning shots, the first shot of what would become known as the Kepler incident, was fired by Captain Vextal of the Drakmari patrol ship Blazing Claw. His plasma cannon sent a brilliant orange beam across the bow of the human transport Chicago. Close enough to heat the hull, but not cause damage. It was meant as a warning, a demonstration of superior firepower. Captain Martinez of the human frigate Boston watched the plasma blast with professional interest. Her tactical officer was already calculating firing solutions, while her crew prepared the Mark 7 railgun for combat operations. "Sir, they missed," her weapons officer said with dry humor. "No, Lieutenant. That was intentional. They are trying to scare us." Martinez opened a channel to the Drakmari ship. "Captain Vextal, you have fired on a civilian vessel in human space. Withdraw immediately or face defensive action." Vextal laughed, his red scales gleaming under the bridge lights. "Your threats are meaningless, mammal. Surrender now and we will allow your people to evacuate peacefully." Martinez looked at her crew. They were young, professional, and had trained for this moment their entire careers. None of them had ever fired a shot in anger, but they knew their weapons better than any soldiers in galactic history. Weapons lock onto the Drakmari vessel. Single projectile, center mass, minimum velocity. "Ma'am, minimum velocity? We don't want to completely destroy them, Lieutenant." "Not yet." The Boston's railgun powered up with a low hum that vibrated through the ship's hull. Magnetic coils that ran the length of the vessel began to charge, building up electromagnetic forces that could accelerate matter to incredible speeds. Captain Vextal saw the energy readings on his sensors and sneered. "Their primitive magnets are powering up. This should be amusing." His ship's energy shields were rated to stop plasma blasts that could vaporize asteroids. His armor could withstand impacts from meteors and debris. He had fought pirates, rebels, and terrorists throughout his career, and had never met a weapon that could seriously threaten a Drakmari warship. The railgun fired. From the outside, there was no visible beam, no dramatic light show, no obvious sign that anything had happened. The tungsten projectile was only 20 centimeters long and 5 centimeters wide, weighing just 2 kilograms, but it left the Boston's railgun at 8% of light speed. At that velocity, the laws of physics became weapons of mass destruction. The projectile hit the Blazing Claw's energy shield and passed through it like it didn't exist. The shield was designed to deflect charged particles and energy beams, not solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten rod maintained its course and struck the ship's hull directly, amidships. What happened next defied everything the Drakmari understood about space combat. The kinetic energy transfer was instantaneous and catastrophic. The small projectile carried more destructive force than a nuclear warhead. When it hit the Blazing Claw's armor, the impact converted both the projectile and a significant portion of the ship's hull into superheated plasma. The Drakmari vessel simply came apart. There was no explosion in the traditional sense, no dramatic fireball or expanding shockwave. The ship's structure failed at the molecular level, as tremendous forces tore through its internal framework. Atmosphere, crew, equipment, and structure were converted to an expanding cloud of glowing gas in less than a second. Captain Martinez watched the destruction with grim satisfaction. Minimum velocity for a human railgun was still enough to destroy any conventional vessel completely. "My God," whispered her tactical officer. "There's nothing left. Where the blazing claw had been, only a growing sphere of metallic vapor marked its passing. The other two Drakmari ships in the patrol group stared at their sensors in disbelief. Captain Mordax of the second Drakmari ship tried to make sense of what he had witnessed. "Sensors, what happened to the blazing claw?" "Sir, it's gone. Completely gone. I'm reading dispersed metals and trace radioactivity, but no intact structure." "What kind of weapon could do this?" "Unknown, sir. I detected no energy discharge, no plasma buildup, no exotic particle emissions. Something hit them, but I cannot identify what." The Galactic media networks picked up the incident within hours. Emergency broadcasts spread across dozens of worlds as news organizations tried to explain what had happened. The footage was replayed constantly, showing the Drakmari ship simply ceasing to exist with no apparent cause. On Nexus Prime, emergency sessions were called in the Galactic Council chambers. Counselor Thexani watched the battle recordings with growing confusion. "What kind of weapon leaves no energy signature?" he demanded. Dr. Zekthara was brought in to analyze the data. She studied the sensor readings for hours, looking for some explanation that would make sense within known physics. "The only thing I can detect is a brief gravitational anomaly," she reported. "Something very small but extremely dense passed through this area at tremendous velocity." "Dense how?" "The gravitational signature suggests an object with the mass of a small asteroid, compressed into a space the size of a projectile." Admiral Vorthak joined the emergency session by hologram. The massive Kraxon was clearly agitated, his 6 arms moving in patterns that indicated extreme stress. "My analysts cannot explain this weapon," he admitted. "We have reviewed all known human technology reports. They should not possess anything capable of this destruction." "Perhaps it was some kind of accident," suggested Councillor Velnari of the Centauri Republic. "A mining explosion or industrial malfunction." Captain Martinez received new orders from Earth within 6 hours of the engagement. The message was brief and clear. Maintain defensive posture, protect human territory, and prepare for escalation. She was not surprised when 12 more Drakmari ships arrived in the Kepler sector 2 days later. This time they came in battle formation, energy shields at maximum power, plasma weapons charged and ready. The lead ship was the heavy cruiser Crimson Talon, flagship of Captain Drakmor. The Drakmari commander was furious about the loss of his patrol vessel and determined to restore his people's reputation through overwhelming force. "Human vessels, this is Captain Drakmor of the Drakmari Navy. You will surrender immediately or face total annihilation." Martinez looked at her tactical display. 12 Drakmari ships against 3 human vessels, her destroyer New York and 2 frigates that had joined her from nearby patrols. By galactic standards, it was a hopeless fight. By human standards, it was target practice. "This is Captain Torres of the destroyer New York," she replied, using her new rank and command ship. "You are in violation of human territorial space. Withdraw immediately or face defensive action." Drakmor studied the human vessels through his ship's sensors. The largest was barely 400 meters long, a fraction of the size of his flagship. He could see the same magnetic coil arrangements that had been dismissed as mining equipment. "Your mining tools cannot threaten the Drakmari Navy," he broadcast. "Surrender now and we will allow your crews to evacuate before we destroy your ships." Torres looked at her weapons officer. The New York carried 4 Mark 9 railguns, each capable of accelerating projectiles to 12% of light speed. Her tactical computer showed firing solutions for all 12 enemy vessels. "Sir, we could end this in 30 seconds, her weapons officer reported. "Not yet, Lieutenant. Let them make the first move." The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations. It would also force the galactic community to completely revise their understanding of human technology and capabilities. Captain Drakmor gave the order to fire, confident that his superior numbers and firepower would quickly overwhelm the primitive human vessels. His ships opened up with every weapon they had, filling space with deadly plasma beams and particle streams. Torres watched the incoming fire with professional calm. Evasive maneuvers. Return fire, all weapons, maximum effectiveness. The New York's 4 railguns fired in sequence, each projectile aimed at a different target. The 2 frigates added their own Mark 7 systems to the barrage. In less than 10 seconds, 7 Drakmari ships simply ceased to exist. The survivors found themselves facing a terrifying reality. Humanity had been telling the truth about their weapons all along. They just hadn't understood what humans meant by kinetic acceleration weaponry, the PA. Galaxy was about to learn that the most dangerous species in the universe was one that had turned physics itself into an instrument of war. Full-scale engagement. The news of the Kepler incident spread through the galaxy like wildfire. 7 Drakmari warships destroyed in 10 seconds by 3 human vessels. The footage was analyzed by every major military power, but none could explain how primitive kinetic weapons had penetrated advanced energy shields. Admiral Vorthak stood in the war room of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Eternal Glory. Around him, holographic displays showed the tactical situation in the Kepler sector. The surviving Drakmari ships had retreated to the edge of the system, broadcasting frantic reports about phantom weapons and reality-breaking technology. Admiral, the Galactic Council has authorized military intervention, his aide reported. They want us to restore order and protect galactic shipping. Vorthak nodded grimly. The hegemony navy had kept peace in the galaxy for over 1,000 years. No primitive species had ever posed a serious threat to galactic stability. Whatever tricks the humans were using, they would learn the consequences of challenging established powers. Assemble Task Force Nexus, he ordered. Full battle deployment. I want 200 ships representing all 5 major powers. We will show these mammals what real military force looks like. The order went out across the galaxy. The Altarian Federation contributed their newest energy shield technology and plasma weaponry. The Centauri Republic sent their fastest attack cruisers. The Vegan Trading Confederation provided their heavy freighters converted to missile platforms. The Proximan Defense Force brought their experimental particle beam weapons. It was the largest combined fleet assembled in 50 years, representing the pinnacle of galactic military technology. Ship captains who had never worked together trained in joint exercises, preparing for what everyone expected to be a brief but decisive campaign against human forces. On Earth, General Morrison watched satellite feeds of the alien fleet gathering at Nexus Prime. Intelligence estimates suggested over 200 warships from multiple species, including several dreadnought-class vessels that could crack planets. General, they're bringing everything they have, his aide reported. Our deep space sensors show them conducting battle drills and weapons tests. Morrison studied the tactical displays with the calm expression of a career military officer. What is our force strength in the Kepler sector? 32 ships, sir. Captain Torres has been reinforced with elements from the Pacific and Atlantic fleets. The Lincoln Battle Group arrived yesterday with our newest Mark X railgun systems. Mark X? I thought those were still in testing. Emergency deployment authorization, sir. Field trials suggest they can achieve 15% light speed with standard tungsten projectiles. Morrison considered the numbers. 32 human ships against 200 alien vessels. By conventional military doctrine, it should be impossible odds. But human weapons operated under different rules than conventional military doctrine. Captain Sarah Torres stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching her small fleet take position in the Kepler system. Her ships were spread across a cubic volume of space nearly a light hour wide, each vessel positioned to maximize firing angles and minimize the chances of friendly fire incidents. The alien fleet arrived with all the pomp and ceremony that galactic civilization could muster. 200 warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with energy shield emissions and weapon power signatures. Admiral Vorthak broadcast on all frequencies, his message carrying the authority of 1,000 years of galactic dominance. Human vessels, this is Admiral Vorthak of the Galactic Confederation Navy. You are ordered to surrender immediately and submit to galactic justice for your unprovoked attacks on lawful military vessels. Torres looked at her communications officer. Reply on standard diplomatic frequencies. This is Captain Torres of the United Earth Space Navy. You have entered human territorial space without authorization. You have 5 minutes to withdraw before we take defensive action. The alien fleet responded with what sounded like laughter from a dozen different species. Admiral Vorthak's voice carried centuries of military confidence. Captain Torres, you face the combined military might of 5 galactic civilizations. Your 30 ships cannot stand against our 200. Surrender now and we will show mercy to your crews. Torres checked her tactical display. Her ships were in position, their railguns charged and ready. Fire control computers had calculated targeting solutions for every alien vessel, taking into account their formation patterns and predicted evasive maneuvers. Admiral Vorthak, this is your final warning. Withdraw from human space or face the consequences. The consequences? What can you possibly do against this force? Torres looked at her weapons officer. Lieutenant Commander Park nodded, his finger hovering over the firing controls. Around the system, 31 other ships were waiting for the same order. "You are about to find out," Torres replied. "All ships weapons free. Fire for effect." The human fleet opened fire simultaneously. From the perspective of the alien formation, it was like being attacked by invisible demons. There were no energy beams, no missile trails, no dramatic light shows that characterized normal space combat. Instead, ships throughout their formation simply started coming apart. The Altarian cruiser Star of Wisdom was the first to die. A tungsten projectile moving at 15% of light speed hit its forward section and converted the entire front half of the ship into expanding plasma. The crew had no time to scream, no time to understand what was happening. One moment they were alive and confident. The next they were ionized particles spreading through space. Admiral Vorthak watched his tactical display in horror as ship after ship winked out of existence. His flagship's sensors could barely track the projectiles. They were too small and moving too fast for conventional detection systems. By the time the computer identified an incoming round, it had already passed through its target. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted. "All ships, random pattern Delta." But evasive maneuvers were useless against weapons that could cross the distance between fleets in seconds. Human fire control computers had been designed to hit targets moving at relativistic speeds. Conventional ship movements looked like standing still in comparison. The Centauri attack cruiser Stellar Wind tried to hide behind the bulk of a hegemony dreadnought. The human projectile passed through both ships, the tungsten rod maintaining its deadly course even after vaporizing thousands of tons of alien technology and crew. Captain Dexani of the Vegan missile platform, New Prosperity watched a railgun round approach his ship on the tactical display. He had 3 seconds to realize that his energy shields were completely useless against a solid projectile moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The round hit his ship's reactor section and the resulting explosion lit up space for millions of kilometers. But even without the secondary explosion, the kinetic impact alone would have been enough to destroy his vessel completely. In 40 minutes of continuous combat, the human fleet systematically dismantled the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. They did it with the methodical precision of engineers solving a technical problem, rather than the passion of warriors engaged in battle. Human railguns fired in carefully calculated sequences, each shot placed for maximum effect. Targeting priorities focused on command ships, heavy weapons platforms, and vessels attempting to coordinate defensive actions. The alien fleet's superior numbers became a disadvantage as ships collided with each other, trying to escape the invisible death that struck from impossible ranges. Admiral Vorthak's flagship was among the last to die. The Eternal Glory was a symbol of hegemony power, a dreadnought that had never been seriously damaged in 5 centuries of service. Its armor could withstand direct hits from nuclear weapons. Its shields could deflect the output of stellar flares. None of that mattered when a telephone pole-sized tungsten rod moving at 15% of light speed punched through its center section. The ship broke in half, its massive bulk spinning end over end as atmosphere and debris streamed from the catastrophic wound. Admiral Vorthak had just enough time to send a final message before his command section was consumed by secondary explosions. "All galactic forces, this is Admiral Vorthak. Humans possess reality-breaking weapons. Do not engage them with conventional forces. They have turned physics itself into..." The transmission ended when the Eternal Glory's reactor went critical. Captain Torres watched the battle aftermath with grim satisfaction. Her tactical display showed the results. 147 alien vessels destroyed, 31 damaged and fleeing, 22 surrendered and awaiting instructions. 0 human casualties. "Ma'am, we're receiving surrender requests from the surviving alien ships," her communications officer reported. "Accept their surrender, provide medical assistance to damaged vessels and escort them to the edge of the system." "And the ones that are fleeing?" Torres considered the question. Her orders were to defend human territory, not pursue retreating enemies. But she also understood that this battle would be remembered throughout galactic history. Let them go. They have a story to tell. The survivors limped back to their homeworlds carrying news that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Humanity had not been bluffing about their military capabilities. They had simply been misunderstood. The galaxy was about to learn that the most dangerous species in the reckoning. The galactic networks went silent for 6 hours after the Battle of Kepler. News organizations across 100 worlds struggled to process footage that defied everything they understood about warfare and technology. The greatest military force in galactic history had been destroyed by 32 primitive human ships using weapons that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Dr. Zekthara sat in her laboratory on Altair Prime, surrounded by holographic displays showing battle data from every sensor in the Kepler system. She had been analyzing the recordings for 3 days straight, trying to understand how humans had achieved the impossible. Computer, replay the destruction of the Star of Wisdom, maximum resolution. The hologram showed the Altarian cruiser exploding from within as some invisible force tore through its hull. Frame-by-frame analysis revealed a brief gravitational anomaly, lasting less than a nanosecond, followed by the catastrophic failure of the ship's structure. Computer, calculate the kinetic energy required to produce this level of destruction. Numbers appeared in the air around her. The computer's analysis suggested that something with the mass of a small projectile had impacted the ship at nearly 15% of light speed. The kinetic energy transfer was equivalent to several nuclear weapons concentrated into a space the size of a dinner plate. Zekthara felt her scaled skin grow cold as the implications became clear. Humans had not been lying about their railgun technology. They had simply failed to explain what electromagnetic acceleration meant when applied by a species that refused to accept physical limitations. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. Representatives from 50 species gathered in the Great Chamber, their voices creating a cacophony of fear, anger, and confusion. At the center of the debate was a simple question. What do you do when you discover that a species you considered primitive has been building planet-killing weapons? Councillor Thexani called for order, his voice amplified by the chamber's ancient acoustic systems. We must address the human situation with careful consideration. They have demonstrated capabilities far beyond our initial assessments. Demonstrated, roared Ambassador Klexer of the Drakmari Commerce Guild. They slaughtered our fleets. 200 ships destroyed by invisible weapons that our best scientists cannot explain. Ambassador Chen Wei sat quietly in the section reserved for Tier 3 species, watching the chaos with patient calm. She had tried to warn them 3 years ago about human defensive capabilities. Now the galaxy was learning the hard way what human engineers could accomplish when they put their minds to a problem. The question, continued Thexani, is whether humanity poses a threat to galactic stability, or whether this was simply a defensive response to military aggression. Defensive? Klexer's scales had turned bright red with rage. They destroyed the hegemony flagship. Admiral Vorthak is dead. How is that defensive? Chen stood up, her small human form dwarfed by the alien representatives around her. Counselor, if I may address the chamber. The room fell silent. For 3 years, Ambassador Chen had been ignored, dismissed, and treated like a child playing at diplomacy. Now every being in the chamber was staring at her with expressions ranging from fear to fascination. Humanity never sought conflict with any galactic power, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's audio systems. We applied for membership peacefully, submitted our technology reports honestly, and established our colonies according to all applicable laws and regulations, and your technology reports contain no mention of reality-breaking weapons, accused Councillor Velnari. Our reports mentioned kinetic acceleration, weaponry, and electromagnetic propulsion systems. We described railguns capable of achieving high-velocity projectile speeds. The fact that your analysts dismissed these as primitive magnets is not our fault. Dr. Zekthara activated her holographic transmitter from Altair Prime. Ambassador Chen, our analysis of human technology suggested simple magnetic acceleration, similar to industrial mass drivers. Can you explain how your species achieved the velocities we observed in the battle? Chen smiled slightly. Doctor, your people mastered energy manipulation centuries ago. You developed plasma weapons, fusion reactors, and force field technology. You assumed that any advanced civilization would follow the same technological path, and humans did not. Humans took a different approach. We focused on perfecting the fundamental forces of the universe. While your species were learning to manipulate exotic matter and dimensional energy, we were solving the engineering problems of acceleration, velocity, and kinetic energy transfer. The chamber erupted in voices as the implications became clear. Humanity had not developed inferior technology. They had developed a completely different kind of technology, one that the galaxy had never encountered before. How fast can your weapons accelerate projectiles? Asked Councillor Thexani. Our shipboard systems can achieve 15% of light speed with standard tungsten penetrators, Chen replied calmly. Our planetary defense installations can do significantly better. The room fell silent again. Planetary defense installations. The galaxy suddenly realized that the fleet weapons they had witnessed might not represent humanity's full capabilities. Admiral Kavesh of the Proximan Defense Force spoke for the first time. Ambassador Chen, are you saying that humanity possesses weapons more powerful than those used at Kepler? Chen looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives who had spent 3 years treating her like an amusing child. Admiral, what you saw at Kepler were standard ship-mounted railguns designed for fleet engagement. Our strategic defense systems are substantially more capable. How substantially? Our deep space monitoring stations have been tracking every vessel that enters human space since we joined the Confederation. This includes military vessels, merchant ships, and private yachts. Every single ship has been held in targeting solutions by our strategic railgun network since the moment they crossed our territorial boundaries. The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives jumped to their feet, shouting questions and demands. Some called for immediate military action, others for diplomatic negotiations, and a few suggested complete withdrawal from human space. Chen waited for the noise to subside before continuing. Our strategic systems can accelerate projectiles to 25% of light speed across interstellar distances. We have been maintaining targeting solutions on every major population center, military installation, and industrial facility in galactic space for 3 years. Counselor Thexani felt his respiratory systems struggle to process her words. Are you threatening us, Ambassador? No, Counselor. I'm explaining our defensive posture. Humanity has no interest in conquering or destroying other civilizations, but we will not be intimidated, invaded, or forced from our lawful territories. Dr. Zekthara's voice came through the chamber's communication system. Ambassador, are you saying that humans could theoretically strike any target in the galaxy from your home system? Not theoretically, Doctor. We have been maintaining active firing solutions since first contact. Every ship that left human space carried targeting data back to our strategic defense network. We know the location, size, and defensive capabilities of every major installation in known space. The revelation hit the galactic community like a physical blow. Humanity had not been naive newcomers stumbling into galactic politics. They had been conducting a systematic intelligence operation, mapping the entire civilization while being dismissed as primitive miners and farmers. Admiral Kavesh found his voice first. How is this possible? Our security systems should have detected such surveillance activities. Your security systems were designed to detect energy emissions, exotic particle signatures, and conventional sensor arrays, Chen replied. Our reconnaissance methods are based on passive observation, gravitational analysis, and kinetic tracking. We have been watching you the same way we watch asteroids and comets, by measuring how they move and what forces affect them. The chamber fell into stunned silence as the full scope of human capabilities became clear. They had not just underestimated human military technology, they had completely failed to recognize that humanity had been studying them from the beginning. Counselor Thexani spoke carefully. Ambassador Chen, what does humanity want from this council? What we have always wanted, Counselor. Peaceful membership in the galactic community, fair treatment under galactic law, and the right to defend our people and territory from aggression. And if these conditions are met, then our strategic defense systems will continue to operate as they have for the past 3 years, as a deterrent against aggression, not as an offensive threat. And if they are not met? Chen's expression remained calm, but her voice carried the weight of human civilization behind it. Then the galaxy will learn why humanity's first and greatest achievement was not agriculture or metallurgy or even spaceflight. It was the ability to make things go very fast and hit very hard. The Galactic Council adjourned in chaos, with representatives fleeing to their home worlds to report the shocking revelation. Humanity had not been primitive newcomers, they had been patient strategists, building weapons that could crack planets while being distant.